Bonjour à tous, je suis Sumu, votre professeur de français. In today's fantastic lesson, we are diving into the group 2 of French verbs, that is, the IR verbs. If you've ever struggled to learn how to conjugate them, or how to form sentences with them, or how to even remember them for life, this video is definitely for you. Vous êtes prêts? C'est parti! Before we get started, if you would like to have a free PDF guide of what you're taught today, all you need to do is input your name and email address in the link in the description box below, and today's lesson will be sent directly to your inbox. Today, we're diving into group 2 regular verbs that end in IR. Previously, we've taken a look at group 1 ER verbs, and I walked you through how to conjugate them in the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense, and also formed sentences. If you are not sure of what the ER verbs are, you can click this link above to watch the lesson on group 1 ER verbs. The French language is based on 3 group verbs. We have the group 1, which are the regular ER verbs. Group 2, which we are learning today, the regular IR verbs, and group 3 are the irregular verbs. So you have verbs ending in OIR, RE, even IR, and even ER, but just one verb. But in today's lesson, we are going to focus solely on group 2 IR verbs. That is, take a look at some verbs that end in IR. I'm going to teach you how to conjugate them in the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. These verbs are essential for everyday conversations, and knowing these 3 tenses is going to be a game changer in your French fluency journey. With that being said, let us get started with learning how to conjugate IR verbs in the present tense, le présent. First, take a look at this table. Do you see this verb? Let's take a look at this verb first of all, punir. Punir, and this means to punish. As you can see, this is a regular IR verb. It ends in IR. Now, how do I say I am punishing? In the French language, there is nothing like ing or I am punishing. The subject pronoun for I am is je suis, but you can never say je suis punir. It does not exist. In English, we can say I am punishing, but in French, we say I punish. Now, how do you take the verb punir to become I punish? It's simple. You conjugate it with a certain pattern. You might ask me, okay, so what do you mean by infinitive verb conjugation? Let me explain it to you in the English language. In English, we have some verbs like dance or sing or finish or choose. If I were to conjugate those verbs, I would say I am dancing, I am singing, I have finished, I am choosing. Okay? That's what I mean by conjugate the verbs. So in the French language, it's the same. We have verbs. We have different verbs. Finir, choisir, agir, obéir, entendre, a lot of verbs. And when I say to conjugate, it means to take them away from the infinitive form and to conjugate them into a way in which we can use when speaking. And so for an IR verb in the present tense, please take note, we're only talking about the present tense form for group 2 regular IR verbs. What you need to do is take a look at this table and see the endings. You're going to take the word punir, for instance, and you're going to remove the IR and add these specific endings. That's what you need. This is the same pattern for every regular IR verb. Please take notes. I am saying this over and over again, regular IR verb, because we equally have IR verbs that are irregular, but that's not for today's lesson. We're only looking at the regular ones. So do you see the endings for je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, and il? Good. You've seen the endings. That is perfect. Now, let's put it together so that you can see what I mean when I say we're conjugating. Now, let's take a look at these verbs. We're looking at to punish, to act, and to choose. Okay? So remember the image I showed you beforehand. You can pause and you can go back. It's fine. You can rewind. We start with je punis, tu punis, il punit, nous punissons, vous punissez, ils, elles punissent. The next one, you will notice I wrote j'agis, and this is because you do not say je agis, you say j'agis because it's a vowel. So we have j'agis, tu agis, il ou elle ont agi, nous agissons, nous agissons, vous agissez, il, elles agissent. And then we have choisir, to choose. So once again, you can see it ends with an IR. And so what do we have? Je choisis. Tu choisis. Il ou elles ont choisi. Nous choisissons. Vous choisissez. Il ou elles choisissent. Alright, do you now understand? So any IR verb you can actually think of. We have a ton of IR verbs. Like I gave you examples. We have obtenir, grandir, finir. We have a lot of IR verbs. Any IR verb you can think of, this is the way to conjugate them in the present tense. So please take notes. This is strictly for group 2 regular IR verbs. They follow a pattern, which is why they are called regular IR verbs. If they're irregular, they wouldn't follow a pattern, okay? Let's take a look at them in sample sentences to help you further understand what I mean. Le juge punit sévèrement les criminels. Les parents punissent leurs filles pour son retard. J'agis rapidement pour éviter les accidents. Le médecin agit avec prudence pour sauver des vies. Nous agissons ensemble pour résoudre le problème. Je choisis le rouge pour la couleur de ma voiture. Elle choisit Paris pour ses vacances. Ils choisissent de rester à la maison ce soir. Okay, so you've seen how we form sentences using these IR verbs in the present tense. You can go ahead and pick any of these verbs and form your own sentence. This would help you become more confident when you're speaking and when you're writing the French language. Now, let's take a look at how to form group 2 regular IR verbs in le passé composé. Similarly, like the ER verbs, to form this tense, we make use of the auxiliary verb avoir and the past participle of the verb. So here's how to form the verb, okay? You need to know how to conjugate avoir. Avoir means to have. You need to know how to conjugate avoir in the present tense first of all. Once you've learned that part, that's the part 1. The part 2, if you take the verb, let's look at the verb again, punir, for instance. You drop the IR and you only add an I. So it becomes j'ai puni. So let's take it one step at a time. Let us conjugate the verb avoir together in the present tense. And so we have j'ai, tu as, il ou elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. This is how you conjugate the verb avoir in the present tense. Now that you know how to conjugate the first part, like I said, the second part is you take the verb in the infinitive form. And what do? You remove the IR and you just put on an I. So for finir, if I wanted to say finir means what? To finish. If I want to say I have finished, it becomes j'ai fini. That's it, so simple. Let's look at how to conjugate 3 verbs, the same verbs you use for the present tense. Let's see how to conjugate them now in le passé composé. So we're looking at to punish, to act, and to choose. Punir becomes what? J'ai puni. Tu as puni. Il ou elle en a puni. Nous avons puni. Vous avez puni. Ils ou elles ont puni. For the verb agir, to act, it becomes j'ai agi. Tu as agi. Il ou elle en a agi. Nous avons agi. Vous avez agi. Ils ont agi. Elles ont agi. And we have choisir, to choose. To conjugate it in le passé composé, it becomes j'ai choisi. Tu as choisi. Il ou elle en a choisi. Nous avons choisi. Vous avez choisi. Ils ou elles ont choisi. So do you see how simple that is? Please, you need to remember this. Literally, once you can conjugate the verb avoir, it becomes so much easier. Like I said, just 2 steps. Conjugate the verb avoir, first of all, in the present tense. And then for the IR verb, all you need to do is remove the IR ending. So any verb, if it's punir, take away the IR and put on the correct one that comes with the subject pronoun. If it's agir, if it's obtenir, if it's grandir, if it's obéir, any IR verb you can think of, finir, choisir, just put the I at the end and you have your le passé composé. Let's take a look at it in sample sentences so that this can further help you remember how to conjugate the French group 2 regular IR verbs in le passé composé. Les parents ont puni leur fille pour son retard. Le médecin a agi avec précaution pour sauver la vie du patient. J'ai choisi le rouge pour la couleur de ma voiture. Elle a choisi Paris pour ses vacances. Nous avons agi ensemble pour résoudre le problème. I'm sure by now you're like, whoa, Sumo, this is amazing. You now finally know how to conjugate the group 2 regular IR verbs in le présent and le passé composé. With that being said, let's move on to the future. I mean, you already know how to say it in the present tense, the past tense. You and I know that this just means you're talking about an action that happened in the past. Now, what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen next year? What's going to happen next week? Let's take a look at how to conjugate group 2 regular IR verbs in the future tense. First of all, I'm going to give you a tip. I think this is the best part of learning the language. This part of learning the IR verbs, excuse me. You see the future tense? You leave it as it is. You literally leave it. You do not touch it. If you're using the verb finir, for instance, you just leave finir. But you know what you do? You add the same endings that you just learned for the verb avoir. Are you like, sumo, hold on, what do you mean? I'll show you. Take a look at this table. Do you see this table? Do you see the endings? What does it remind you of? Exactly. It's literally what we just learned, how to conjugate le passé composé IR verbs. What did we say? We use avoir first of all, and then we just remove IR and put an I. That's it. So now for the future tense, we leave the verb as it is. We do not touch it. So you leave the verb in the infinitive form, and all you do is you just put these endings. Okay, they are the exact same endings as what we have in the verb avoir. So do you see why I said learning the verb avoir in the present tense is extremely important? Let me show you what I mean. Please take a look at these verbs. We're using the same verbs that we use for the present tense, the past tense. This is just to help you see how to conjugate them in different tenses. The first one becomes what? Je punirai. Do you see? I left punir the same way. All I did was to add AI. That's all. Not artificial intelligence, please. Just AI. The next one becomes what? Tu puniras. The next, il ou elle en punira. Nous punirons. Vous punirez. Ils ou elles puniront. Okay? That is for the verb punir. Now, let's take a look at the verb agir. J'agirai. Tu agiras. Il ou elle en agira. Nous agirons. Vous agirez. Ils ou elles agiront. And the final verb choisir, to choose, we have je choisirai. Tu choisiras. Il ou elle ou on choisira. Nous choisirons. Vous choisirez. Ils ou elles choisiront. So do you see that the group 2 verbs are actually so easy? All you need to do, like I said, please do not forget, once you know how to conjugate the verb avoir in the present tense, it becomes so much more easier for you. You just leave the verb like that and you just put the ending, that's all. That is how you conjugate group 2 regular IR verbs in the future tense. To help you further, let's take a look at sample sentences so you can see how they look and hear how they sound. Je punirai mon frère pour son comportement. Elle punira ses élèves pour tricherie. L'équipe agira avec efficacité pour gagner des matchs. Elle agira avec courage pour défendre ses droits. Nous choisirons le meilleur restaurant pour le dîner. Ils choisiront de rester à la maison ce soir. And there we have it. So you see, at the end of today's lesson, what have you learned? You have learned how to conjugate and form sentences with the group 2 regular IR verbs in le présent, le passé composé, and le futur. The present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. Tell me how you feel. Don't you feel like, oh my goodness, I have superpowers? I always say being bilingual is a superpower. Like, imagine you can think in 2 languages. Like, wow. You've also seen how we've been able to use these verbs in so many sample sentences. Like I said, please take out your pen and paper and keep practicing. That's the only way you're going to get better. Before I let you go, do not forget, you can download today's lesson. All you need to do is input your name and email address in the link in the description below, and today's lesson will be sent directly to your inbox. Lastly, let's take a quick quiz. So this quiz is just to test your comprehension. I'm going to read a text out to you, and what I need you to do is take a pen and paper, underline, or you can list out, you can list out the IR verbs that I used in this story, whether it's in the present tense, the past tense, or the future tense. And let me know in the comment section below how many you got. Were you able to list every single thing out? Let me know. Let's get started. Léa grossit chaque jour. Un jour, elle a décidé de perdre du poids pour être plus rapide. Pendant les vacances, elle a mangé des légumes et a réussi à perdre du poids. Son ami Max, qui grossit de temps en temps, rit en plaisantant lorsqu'elle courait. Ne t'inquiète pas, Max, dit-elle. Je vais améliorer mon temps de course et réussir ma compétition. Max, qui prenait également du poids, va perdre du poids avec elle et ensemble, ils remporteront la compétition de course à pied l'année prochaine. So how did you do? Did you get it all? Do not worry, I'm going to show you a quick list now of all the instances in which we use the IR verb either in the present tense, the past tense, or the future tense. Here we go. Thank you for watching today's fantastic lesson. If you loved it, please do not forget to give it a like. This really helps the channel to grow. Share with others. Do not gatekeep. Let your friends and family members learn for life how to conjugate the IR verbs in the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. And most importantly, subscribe so that you are aware when I post new lessons. If you want to take it a step further, I have created the perfect French Verbs group course. This course is extremely detailed. You get bonuses like understanding the subject pronouns, understanding futur proche, you have movies, and you have over 150 exercises. It's a 21-day challenge. That is in 3 weeks. Just 3 weeks, you get to master these tenses for life. So this course is all about the ER groups, the IR groups, and the irregular verbs. You get to learn how to conjugate them in the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. Did I just say you have lifetime access? Exactly. So which means even after you're done after 3 weeks, you can decide to go over it again next month, the month after, next year to continuously reinforce your learnings. If you want to take it a step further today and say, Sumo, you know what? I'm ready to take action and master these tenses for life. All you need to do is click the link in the description box below and you will get started with today's lesson right away. I cannot wait to welcome you through the doors. Thank you once again for watching today's fantastic lesson. Until I see you in my next lesson, bonne journée.